Hey, what's up guys, John here. The White House and the Biden administration are now working on pushing forward the highest capital gains rate America has seen in well over 100 years. And I believe that this could very well flip the perspective of a lot of people holding stock and real estate, knowing that this big bill, this big law, this big new policy could be coming, and if it does, their tax base would change dramatically. We could see a lot of people trying to sell just before this goes into effect. Now this is 44.6% of all gains on a federal level. If you live in a location like California, it's 59% of all of your gains would be given to the state and federal government. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's going on, why I believe this is going to likely instigate one of the greatest rug pulls in the stock market and potentially the real estate market that we've probably ever seen. Please hit the like button, hit the like button. People share this content to educate the people about what's going on. I also think that this is going to push a lot of people outside of America, a lot of businesses outside of America. America once was a very, very pro-business country, the land of opportunity, and that has radically changed. And today's video is sponsored by my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow, for Thursday. Take a look at this. So President Biden has formally proposed the highest top capital gains tax in over 100 years. Here's the direct quote from the Biden 2025 budget proposal. Together, the proposals would increase the top marginal rate on long-term capital gains and qualified dividends to 44.6%. Now, how they determine capital gains, subtracting the asset's current cost or purchase price plus any expenses incurred. So you think about that. You buy a stock for 100, it goes to 200. You'd have to give, 50%, 44.6% of that $100 gain back to the government. Now, this is going extremely viral. 1.6 million views on this. The biggest tax hike in 100 years. Kiss your wealth goodbye. Another one, 200,000 views just in. President Biden pushes 44.6% capital gains. Another, 326,000 views. Now, what's fascinating here is many people believe that the real estate market is very, very hot. Home prices are at record highs, and it's just an incredible time to own real estate. And I agree, for many people it could be. But for people that are going to be forced to sell during this term, this presidency, and during this, potential lockup period on this 44.6% capital gains rate window, that could be a big problem, because if they bought a property for $500,000 and it sells for $1 million, there's a $500,000 gain. If that person is let's say a single person, and they can only write off $250,000 worth of a tax write-off, because you can personally gain $250K on a primary residence, the other $250,000, roughly 125 of that, or 115 would be given directly back to the government. Right? And so if that's an investment property, if that's a flip, who wants to buy a property if they're giving back half of their profits directly back to the state? That's if they live in a place like Nevada, Tennessee, Texas, or Florida. If they live in a place like California, they're giving most of it back, so they're taking all this risk for very little and limited upside, especially given the fact that the economy and the market, the real estate market, is a very delicate place. More so than we've probably ever seen before. Interest rates went from 3% to now they're about 8%. If you have great credit, you're looking, in the mid sevens, likely, 7.4. If you have the average credit score in America is 698, you're looking at 8%. And so what I believe is happening is we're walking into the greatest staged rug pull, the greatest planned rug pull. Here's what I mean by this. So 4 hours ago, two different publications, the same exact headline. Why the Fed keeps rates higher for longer may not be such a bad thing, CNBC. Why the Fed keeps rates higher for longer may not be such a bad thing, right, NBC. So what I think is going to happen is they're going to say everything is great, everything is good. This is what we need to do to bring inflation down. Meanwhile, inflation is going to get worse, and all of the perceived wealth in which many people thought that they accumulated the last couple of years will be taken through a lot of new tax policies and a lot of new restrictions and regulations that are coming in. But who's going to benefit the most from this? It's going to be the billionaires. It's going to be the wealthy business owners. It's going to be the people with online businesses, the people that are mobile. We're going to see a lot of people opting in for second passports. I can promise you that. We're going to see a lot of businesses moving to other locations. They're going to be going to different places, throughout the world to take advantage of cheaper labor, take advantage of lower taxes, take advantage of a healthier food, a lower cost of living, and just a better quality of life. And it's unfortunate because America was made based on capitalism, based on going out there and making a dream coming into reality and hiring a lot of employees and allowing those employees to supply value for themselves and their family and put their kids through college. Now the only people that win are going to be the government, because the government's going to take so much wealth through businesses. It's going to push those that have the means outside of America, and those that don't are likely going to fold up, or they're going to have a much harder time surviving. Now, looking at this from a double-edged, kind of a second perspective, this person said, what do we think about increasing capital gains tax this much? Here's a quick thought. The cons: investing hesitant to realize gains, investors discouraged from deploying capital, increased tax avoidance strategies, decreased foreign investment in America. And they said the pros are increased tax revenue and decreased income inequality. Now, I personally think that there's going to be more income inequality through these taxes because less money is going to flow to the middle class and a lot more money is going to flow up. And the increased tax revenue, I don't think you could give them enough money to solve the problems of America. I mean, look at, for example, California. The city of Santa Monica has approved a new apartment complex for the homeless that will cost a staggering $1 million per unit. The $123 million project will include just 122 units. It was approved days after an audit found California spent $24 billion to tackle homelessness between 2018 and 2023, but did not consistently track whether that massive outpouring of public money actually did anything to help the problem. It hasn't. The homeless count in California has only gone up, and the problem has only gotten worse. So $1 million a unit, if it was in any other state in the country, if it was in Florida, if it was in one of these other states, they would be able to build these units for a fraction of the cost. And so you just, look at California. What's happening in California is what's happening on a federal level right now with a lot of policies. Money is just flowing everywhere, and it's not going back to the people. Look at the Dow Jones. Stock market's all-time highs. A lot of people think they have a lot of money in stock. When this starts to happen, what do you think people are going to start to do? Once this goes into effect and there's a set deadline, you think people are going to wait for that deadline and say, yeah, I'm just going to give half of those gains to the government? Or do you think they're going to try to sell beforehand? I'm betting they're going to start trying to sell, and they're going to see other people that don't want to sell. They're going to start taking out lines of credit on their stock. People are going to start doing whatever they have to do to try to avoid these taxes, all of which is going to be a problematic situation for America. So look at this. So Biden calls for 44.6% capital gains tax rate, highest capital gains since its creation in 1922. President Biden has formally proposed the highest top capital gains rate in over 100 years. Here's a direct quote. Together, the proposals would increase the top marginal rate on long-term capital gains and qualified dividends to 44.6%. Yes, you read that correctly. 44.6%. Under the Biden proposal, the combined federal state capital gains tax exceeds 50% in many states. California will face a combined federal state rate of 59%. New Jersey, 55.3%. Oregon, 54.5%. Minnesota, 54.5%. And New York State, 53.4%. Worst capital gains are not indexed to inflation. So Americans already get stuck paying tax on some gains that are not real. Biden's high inflation makes this especially painful. Capital gains taxes are often a form of double taxation when capital gains come from stock mutual funds, stock ETFs. The capital gains tax is cascaded second layer of tax on top of the current federal corporate income tax of 21%. The proposed Biden top capital gains tax is more than twice as high as China. China's capital gains rate is 20%. It is wise to have higher taxes in China than here, right? And with Biden's combined federal state capital gains as 59% in California, residents will face a rate nearly 3 times as high as China. The capital gains tax was created on its own in 1922 at a rate of 12.5%. See the chart below, see how Biden's proposed capital gains for 2025, which is, 6 months from now, 8 months from now, puts the United States in uncharted territories. Biden's proposed capital gains tax hike will also hit many families when parents pass away. Biden's proposed adding a second death tax separate from and in addition to the existing death tax by taking away stepped-up basis when parents pass away. This would result in a mandatory capital gains tax at death, a forced realization event when somebody passes away and the asset transfers to an heir. That transfer itself will be a taxable event, and the estate is required to pay taxes on the gains as if they sold the asset. Biden's proposal will take away a stepped-up basis, has already been tried, and it failed in 1976. Congress eliminated stepped-up basis, but it was also complicated and unworkable, and they were repealed before it took effect. Almost immediately, however, the new law touched off a flood of complaints as unfair and impossibly unworkable. So many, in fact, that last year Congress retroactively delayed the law's effective date until 1980. It struggled again with the issue. So you start to look at this, the wealth. The only way wealth, and in addition also, Biden's 2025 budget calls for about $5 trillion in tax increases over the next 10 years. So what's going to happen is the wealthy, the 1%, the top 5% really, and that's why the next couple of years is so important, they're going to put a lot of weight in legal counsel, hiring the right attorneys, hiring the right tax advisors, getting second passports. They're going to be doing everything they have to do to shield and protect themselves from a tsunami of taxes and regulation that are likely sweeping this country. And those that do that, legally, of course, are going to be able to, withhold the storm a little bit better. And as 95% of Americans, give or take, can't withhold it, and they're negatively impacted by all the money that's not going to trickle down to them, they're going to be forced to sell off homes and assets. And 70% of all 1 to 4 unit properties are held by mom and pop and individual landlords. So, those that have the money are going to step in and acquire a lot of these assets for pennies on the dollar. And if real-time wages are softening, especially with AI and technology coming the next couple years, next decade or so, you're going to start seeing real wages fall. Asset values likely will not recover for single-family homes. How could they? And over the long term. And so the real-term capital gains won't really be as applicable. You're going to see a lot of money just pouring into all these properties. And it's a sad situation, but this is unfortunately likely what's going to go forward. What do you think about this situation? Where do you see all of this going? With a give or take 50% capital gains rate, depending on the state in which you live, 44% if you live in a tax-free location or a no state income tax location. But if you live in a state like California, Texas, or California, New York, and one of these other one of these other locations, Minnesota, with a high tax rate, you're going to see 50, 55, 59% taxes. Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this. How do you see this playing out for America? If you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself, what I believe is going to be, I've talked about this on this channel, the greatest rug pull in American history. I think over the last 4 years, we've been set up for a big, big rug pull that's coming. And those that have good credit, they're going to be positioned for funding, and they're going to be positioned to make moves when a lot of other people, unfortunately, will not be, especially as banks continue contracting credit as times get a little bit more uncertain. If you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item in a credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow, and I'll catch you next video.